Block 1. The rich aroma of leather mixed with a faint, expensive cologne flooded my senses as I collapsed into the expansive seat. It was a sharp deviation from the stale, recirculated air that usually welcomed me on airplanes. I hadn't managed to sleep in 36 hours. An unending series of double shifts at the hospital had trapped me in a haze of fatigue so dense I could hardly recall my own name, let alone my assigned seat number. All I comprehended was the absolute necessity of reaching Chicago for my sister's wedding. That journey entailed surviving a 3-hour flight in whatever tight economy spot I had been allocated. 9C, I whispered under my breath, squinting at my wrinkled boarding pass, the digits swimming before my weary eyes. I had been so preoccupied after clearing security, struggling with my shoes, my laptop, and the notification that my landlord was increasing my rent yet again, that the announcement regarding a gate change had barely registered. By the time I arrived at the right gate, the pre-boarding process had concluded. I had hurried onto the aircraft in a daze, drifting with the stream of passengers until I located a vacant aisle seat. The seat felt impossibly plush. Almost too plush. I traced my fingers over the soft leather armrest, observing the significant amount of space separating me from the passenger at the window, a silver-haired businessman already absorbed in his tablet. The middle seat remained empty, providing a luxurious buffer I wasn't used to in my standard flying experiences. "Would you care for a beverage before we take off?" A flight attendant materialized next to me, her smile practiced and gleaming. I blinked, taken aback by the pre-flight attention. "Just water, thanks," I answered, suddenly realizing how dry my throat felt. She nodded and came back moments later holding crystal glassware, not the plastic cup I had anticipated, filled with ice water and adorned with a slice of lemon. I took it with a perplexed expression of gratitude, questioning if the airline had revamped their service standards since my last trip. Slowly, the cabin populated around me. I observed that the passengers boarding now appeared distinct. Bespoke suits, luxury timepieces, designer luggage being stowed with efficiency. A chill ran up my spine as the realization hit me. I frantically checked the seat markers and then looked down at my ticket. "Oh my God," I whispered, my stomach plummeting. I wasn't seated in 9C. I was in 1C. First class. I had walked straight past the economy section and planted myself in the premium cabin without even realizing it. Heat flooded my cheeks. I was preparing to stand and clarify my error to the flight attendant when the atmosphere around me seemed to shift. It was nuanced, like the drop in barometric pressure preceding a storm, yet undeniable. A presence loomed behind me, heavy, intentional, commanding. I sensed him before I laid eyes on him. The scent arrived first, expensive and understated, not overwhelming, but unmistakably there. Then, a shadow cast over me as someone paused in the aisle right next to my seat. I turned, an apology already shaping on my lips, but the words died in my throat. He stood there, absolutely motionless, his dark eyes evaluating me with an intensity that made me feel physically pinned to the chair. His suit was black and tailored to perfection, emphasizing broad shoulders and a frame that appeared built for both boardroom supremacy and physical intimidation. A substantial watch glinted on his wrist, not ostentatious, but clearly of high value. Every aspect of him broadcasted power kept in deliberate reserve, yet it was his eyes that froze me in place. Dark, nearly black. They held my gaze with a look I couldn't quite interpret. It wasn't anger, nor was it amusement, it was something calculating and measured. He wasn't by himself. A man with broad shoulders in a dark suit stood a few paces behind him, his eyes perpetually scanning the cabin, his hand placed oddly over his chest in a manner that implied readiness. "Excuse me," I started, my voice humiliatingly quiet. "I think I am in the wrong." He leaned down, close enough that I could detect the warmth of his breath against my ear. His voice was deep, carrying an accent I couldn't identify, something Eastern European that lent a threatening edge to his perfectly enunciated words. "Stay seated." It wasn't a request. It was a directive. I clutched the armrests, my knuckles turning white. "But this isn't my seat. I am supposed to be back in economy." His hand came to rest on the back of my chair. The casual motion felt intensely possessive. A heavy signet ring caught the light, gold featuring some dark crest I couldn't distinguish. I said, "Stay seated." His voice remained low, but there was steel concealed beneath the velvet. "It is taken care of." The flight attendant who had served me earlier approached, her gaze darting anxiously between us. "Mr. Sokolov, your usual seat." He didn't glance at her, his eyes remaining locked on mine. "There has been a change. I will take 1A today. The window seat directly adjacent to mine. My associate will occupy 2A. He gestured toward the man behind him. The flight attendant's smile wavered ever so slightly before her professional training kicked back in. "Of course, Mr. Sokolov." Immediately, I sat rigid as the man, Sokolov, settled in beside me, his movements efficient and controlled. The businessman who had occupied the window seat was already being ushered to another location, offering not a single word of protest. I watched in stunned silence as Sokolov's associate claimed the seat behind him, positioning himself like a guard. "What is your name?" Sokolov asked, his focus now on his phone, fingers tapping rapidly across the glass. I swallowed hard. "Emma. Emma Reynolds." "Where are you headed, Emma Reynolds?" He still didn't look up. "Chicago. My sister is getting married." I wasn't sure why I included that detail. Maybe it was a desperate bid to humanize myself to this man who radiated danger. He finally turned those dark eyes back to me, studying my face with unsettling thoroughness. "You are exhausted." It wasn't phrased as a question, but I nodded regardless. "Double shifts at the hospital." "I'm a nurse." Something flickered in his expression, approval, perhaps, or interest. He raised a hand, and instantly a flight attendant materialized. "Bring Ms. Reynolds a proper pillow and blanket," he commanded. "And whatever she desires to drink." "That is really not," I began. "You require rest," he interrupted, the finality in his tone allowing for no debate. I dislike witnessing people suffer unnecessarily. The irony of that sentiment wasn't lost on me, coming from a man who exuded menace from every pore. However, fatigue was crashing over me in waves, and the idea of fighting both my exhaustion and this intimidating stranger seemed insurmountable. The cabin door sealed with a decisive thud. The safety demonstration commenced, but Sokolov ignored it, his attention returning to his phone. I caught glimpses of what appeared to be security footage and financial data before he angled the screen away from my line of sight. "Why?" I finally whispered as the plane started to taxi. "Why are you doing this?" He glanced at me, one dark eyebrow arching. Perhaps I dislike seeing people removed from comfort they have already claimed. A pause followed, then he spoke with a coldness that made my blood freeze. Or perhaps I prefer keeping my enemies close, and strangers closer. The engines roared as we accelerated down the tarmac. I gripped the armrests tighter, shutting my eyes against the force of takeoff and the weight of his words. When I opened them again, he was observing me, something almost predatory in his gaze. "Afraid of flying, Miss Reynolds?" "Afraid of the company," I replied before I could stop myself. To my surprise, the corner of his mouth twitched upward. Not quite a smile, but an acknowledgement of my small act of defiance. "Smart girl," he murmured. "Instincts are important." The fasten seatbelt sign chimed off. Sokolov immediately unbuckled his, turning slightly toward me. One arm stretched along the back of my seat in a posture that felt possessive. "Tell me about this wedding," he said, his tone making it evident this wasn't small talk, but an interrogation. I hesitated, wondering how much information was safe to divulge. "My younger sister, Lily, she is marrying her college sweetheart. I am the maid of honor." "And the groom, what does he do?" "He is in finance. Works for Wellington Capital in Chicago." The instant the words left my mouth, I regretted them. Something dangerous flashed in Sokolov's eyes. "Wellington Capital," he repeated slowly. "Interesting coincidence, is it not?" My mouth had gone dry. He didn't answer, instead studying me with renewed intensity. "When did you last speak with your sister?" 2 days ago." "Why? And she is happy with this match?" The question was odd, loaded with implications I couldn't decipher. "Very. They have been together for years." He nodded, seemingly satisfied for the moment. The flight attendant returned with a plush pillow, a soft blanket, and a glass of what looked like expensive champagne. I didn't ask for, I began. Drink, Sokolov instructed. It will help you sleep. Warning bells clanged in my head. I don't drink with strangers. Something akin to respect flickered across his face. Wise policy. He took the glass himself, taking a sip before handing it back to me. Not poisoned, I assure you. The gesture was both reassuring and terrifying in its implication. What kind of man casually addresses concerns about poisoning? Mr. Sokolov, I began, desperate to establish some normalcy. I appreciate whatever strings you pulled to let me stay in this seat, but I am perfectly fine going back to economy where I belong. His expression hardened. Where you belong, he repeated, the words carrying a weight I didn't understand. That remains to be seen, doesn't it? My phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out, grateful for the distraction, only to find a text from an unknown number. Don't mention Wellington Capital again. Delete this message. My head snapped up, eyes wide. Sokolov was looking out the window, seemingly disinterested, but the timing was too perfect to be a coincidence. I deleted the message with trembling fingers. Something wrong? He asked without turning. No, I lied, the word sticking in my throat. You are a poor liar, Emma Reynolds. We will have to work on that. The casual implication that we would have any future interaction sent a chill down my spine. I don't understand what is happening, I admitted. What do you want from me? He turned back to me, his expression unreadable. Right now? For you to rest. You look like you might collapse, and I find that inconvenient. Before I could respond, his phone rang. He answered it with a curt DA, before continuing in what I recognized as Russian, his voice dropping to a dangerous rumble. I couldn't understand the words, but the tone conveyed a clear threat. I took the opportunity to study him more carefully. He was older than I had initially thought, mid-40s perhaps, with threads of silver at his temples that only enhanced his intimidating presence. A thin scar ran along his jawline, barely visible unless you were looking closely. His hands were both elegant and powerful, not a laborious hands, but those of a man who was no stranger to violence. He ended the call abruptly and caught me watching him. Instead of looking away, I held his gaze, determined not to show more fear than I already had. Who are you? I asked directly. Someone you should be grateful to, for now. He nodded toward the pillow. Sleep, Emma. The conversation will be more productive when your mind is clear. I can't just sleep with. I stopped myself, realizing how that sounded. A ghost of amusement crossed his features. With a dangerous man watching over you. Perhaps not yet, but you will learn. The casual certainty in his voice sent a fresh wave of panic through me. What had I stumbled into? Why was Wellington Capital relevant? And for what reason did this potent, perilous man appear so fascinated by my sister's wedding? I hadn't noticed I was trembling until he placed the blanket over my lap, his fingers grazing mine in a movement that felt surprisingly tender. Rest, he instructed again, his tone quieter now but no less authoritative. I will rouse you before we land, against my better judgment. Fatigue was victorious. My eyelids felt impossibly weighted, and the plush seat held me in a deceptive hug. The final image I saw before sleep took me was Sokolov's dark, observant stare and the slight tilt of his mouth. Not exactly a smile, nor a threat, but a vow of something I could not yet comprehend. And in that instant of yielding to exhaustion, a single frightening thought formed in my mind. Whatever game was being played, I had unknowingly become a piece on the board, and the man beside me was undeniably a king, not a pawn. I awoke with a jolt, momentarily confused. The soft hum of engines enveloped me, and my cheek rested against something firm yet pleasant. As consciousness returned, mortification followed. I had fallen asleep against Sokolov's shoulder. I sat up abruptly, my heart pounding. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Be still. His voice was low, bordering on gentle. You needed the rest. Shame burned through me as I realized my hand had been curled against his suit jacket. I pulled away, straightening in my seat, attempting to regain some semblance of dignity. The cabin lights were dimmed, implying I had been asleep for a while. How long was I out? I asked, my voice rasping. Nearly 2 hours, he verified, checking his watch, the same understated yet clearly expensive timepiece I had noted earlier. We begin our descent in 20 minutes. 2 hours of vulnerability near this man. The thought sent a cold chill down my spine. You speak in your sleep, he remarked casually, eyes reverting to the tablet in his hand. Intriguing things about your sister. My blood turned to ice. What did I say? He gave me a calculated look. That she seemed afraid on your last call. That something felt wrong. I swallowed hard. I hadn't consciously acknowledged it until that moment, but he was correct. During our last conversation, Lily had sounded strained, her usual exuberance replaced with something more reserved. I had attributed it to pre-wedding stress. But now, hearing my own subconscious concerns voiced by this dangerous stranger, doubt crept in. It is just wedding nerves, I said, more to convince myself than him. Sokolov made a non-committal sound. His attention seemed on his tablet, but I could feel his awareness of me like a physical touch. Nothing about this man was casual or coincidental. Why are you so interested in my sister's wedding? I finally asked. He set his tablet down and turned those penetrating eyes on me. I am not interested in her wedding. I am interested in her fiancé, James Preston. He spoke the name with subtle but unmistakable contempt. And by extension, I am now interested in you. My pulse quickened. What does James have to do with anything? He is just a financial analyst. Is that what he told your sister? A cold smile touched his lips but didn't reach his eyes. James Preston is the son of Howard Preston, Wellington Capital's founder, and Howard Preston owes me a significant debt, one he has been avoiding paying. The implications hit me like a physical blow. This has nothing to do with me or my sister. It has everything to do with your sister now that she is marrying into that family. His voice hardened. The Prestons have stolen from me, Miss Reynolds. I do not forgive theft. Fear clutched at my throat. Are you threatening my sister? No. His answer was immediate and firm. I am telling you that she may be walking into danger without knowing it. The Preston family has enemies, powerful ones, beyond just me. The flight attendant appeared before I could respond, offering refreshments before landing. Sokolov ordered coffee for both of us, dismissing her with a slight nod. I don't understand what this has to do with me, I said when she had gone. Or why you are telling me this. He studied me with calculating intensity. Tell me, Emma, how well do you know James Preston? I hesitated. The truth was, I had only met James twice, once briefly at Christmas and again at the engagement dinner 6 months ago. He had been charming but somewhat distant, citing work commitments when I had tried to engage him in conversation about his background. Not well, I admitted reluctantly. Satisfaction flickered across Sokolov's face. And yet you are the maid of honor at a wedding where your sister is marrying a man whose family is deeply entangled with some of the most dangerous people in Chicago. I felt sick. What are you suggesting? I am suggesting nothing. I am stating facts. He accepted the coffee from the returning flight attendant, then continued once we were alone again. Wellington Capital launders money for several criminal organizations. They have recently made the mistake of skimming funds, including mine. My hands trembled as I lifted my own coffee cup. You are a criminal. Something dangerous flashed in his eyes. I am a businessman with diverse interests. The legality of those interests varies depending on which government you ask. His voice lowered. But I have one rule that never changes. I protect what is mine. And what does that have to do with me? I whispered. He reached out, his fingers brushing a strand of hair from my face with unsettling gentleness. You sat in my seat, Emma Reynolds. Sometimes fate has interesting ways of bringing useful people into my path. I recoiled from his touch. I am not useful to you. On the contrary, you are the perfect way for me to observe the Preston family up close. His expression darkened. There will be powerful, dangerous people at that wedding. People who wouldn't typically allow someone like me near them. But the maid of honor and her +1 face much less scrutiny. Realization dawned, horror close behind. You can't possibly expect me to. I expect you to ensure your sister's safety, he cut in sharply. The Prestons have angered people far less forgiving than me. If you want to protect her, you will accept my help. Your help? I repeated incredulously. You are threatening me. I am offering you protection. There is a difference. His voice softened marginally. If I wanted to threaten you, Emma, you wouldn't mistake it for anything else. The plane began its descent, the change in pressure making my ears pop. Outside the window, Chicago's skyline emerged through wisps of cloud, the late afternoon sun glinting off glass towers. Somewhere in that sprawl of humanity was my sister, blissfully unaware of the danger this man claimed surrounded her future husband. I don't believe you, I said finally. This could all be lies. Sokolov smiled thinly. A reasonable suspicion. He slid his phone toward me. Perhaps this will convince you. On the screen was a news article from 6 months ago. A Wellington Capital executive found dead in an apparent suicide. Below it was a police report that certainly hadn't been released to the public, detailing inconsistencies in the death scene. How did you get this? I whispered. I have resources. He took the phone back. That man was the last person who tried to alert authorities about Wellington's activities. The official ruling was suicide. It wasn't. Cold fear settled in my stomach. What do you want from me? Your cooperation. His voice was matter-of-fact. You will introduce me as your boyfriend at all wedding events. You will not alert your sister or anyone else to my true identity. In return, I will ensure no harm comes to you or your sister during my investigation. And if I refuse? His expression remained unchanged, but something in his eyes chilled me to the bone. Then I walk away. I focus solely on retrieving what is mine from the Prestons through my usual channels. And your sister becomes collateral damage in a war she doesn't even know exists. The plane touched down with a jolt, the engines roaring as we decelerated along the runway. Passengers around us began gathering belongings, but Sokolov remained motionless, waiting for my answer. You are asking me to lie to my sister, I said, my voice barely audible over the aircraft noises. I am asking you to protect her, he corrected. Sometimes protection requires deception. The seatbelt sign dinged off. All around us, passengers stood, eager to disembark. Sokolov remained seated, his gaze unwavering. Time to decide, Emma. I thought of Lily, her excitement about the wedding, her dreams for the future, the subtle strain I had detected in her voice during our last call. If even a fraction of what Sokolov claimed was true. Fine, I whispered, the word tasting like ash in my mouth. I will do it. Something like approval flickered across his face as he finally stood, buttoning his suit jacket with one fluid motion. Wise choice. His associate appeared at the end of our row, somehow having already retrieved luggage from the overhead compartments. He handed Sokolov a sleek leather briefcase while keeping my carry-on bag himself. This is Alexei, Sokolov said, nodding toward the stone-faced man. He will be accompanying us. Us. I echoed, standing on shaky legs. I am staying with my sister at the hotel. Change of plans. Sokolov's hand came to rest on the small of my back, guiding me toward the exit with surprising gentleness that nonetheless felt like a shackle. You will be staying at my residence in Chicago. We have preparations to make if we are to be convincing as a couple. Panic flared. I can't just disappear. My sister is expecting me. Call her, he replied smoothly. Tell her you have met someone, that you will still be at the rehearsal dinner tomorrow, but with a guest. Women find new romance exciting, do they not? She will be delighted for you. We emerged from the jetway into the terminal, immediately flanked by 2 more suits, security personnel who materialized as if from nowhere, creating a protective formation around Sokolov. One of them took my bag from Alexei, handling it with impersonal efficiency. This is kidnapping, I hissed under my breath as Sokolov guided me through the terminal, his hand still pressed against my back. This is protection, he corrected, his voice equally low. You will have your own suite, complete privacy when desired, and my word that no harm will come to you. But make no mistake, Emma. His fingers tightened slightly, a subtle reminder of his strength. You are now under my care, and I take my responsibilities very seriously. The terminal blurred around me, polished floors, hurrying passengers, the ambient noise of announcements and reunions. None of it seemed real. I felt suspended in some bizarre alternate reality where I had traded my freedom for my sister's safety to a man who radiated danger from every pore. We bypassed the baggage claim entirely, exiting through a private security checkpoint where guards nodded deferentially to Sokolov without checking any identification. Outside, a sleek black SUV with tinted windows waited at the curb, the driver already holding the door open. "Your luggage will be collected and delivered to the house," Sokolov informed me as he guided me into the vehicle's plush interior. "If there is anything else you need, it will be provided." I sank into the leather seat, numb with shock and fear. Sokolov settled beside me, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. Alexei and another security man took the seats facing us, their expressions unreadable as the vehicle pulled smoothly into traffic. I stared out at Chicago's skyline, the familiar city, suddenly feeling alien and menacing. Somewhere beyond the glass, my sister was frantically and joyfully preparing for what was supposed to be the happiest occasion of her life, completely oblivious to the fact that her future husband's family had ensnared her in a lethal trap. "I have one question," I said, my voice finally shattering the oppressive silence inside the vehicle. "Why didn't you simply approach my sister directly? Why go through this elaborate charade with me?" Sokolov's expression softened, though the change was almost imperceptible. "Because the moment I approached your sister, she would have immediately confided in her fiancé. That would have placed both her and myself in immediate danger." He scrutinized me with those intense, penetrating eyes. "You, however, demonstrated admirable discretion and courage. You recognized my nature instantly, yet you did not panic or cause a scene. You evaluated your options, made a calculated decision to protect your sister, and acted upon it." A faint, barely there smile touched his lips. "Those are valuable traits, Emma Reynolds." Something in his tone caused a shiver to run down my spine, and it wasn't entirely due to fear. "I am a nurse," I replied quietly. "I am trained to remain calm during emergencies." "Is that what I am? An emergency?" There was a distinct hint of amusement in his voice now. I met his gaze squarely. "You are a catastrophe that I am attempting to contain." To my surprise, he laughed, a genuine, rich sound that momentarily transformed his severe features. "I think we will work well together, Emma." The SUV turned onto Michigan Avenue, flowing seamlessly through the heavy traffic as if invisible forces were clearing a path for us. Perhaps they were. I was beginning to comprehend that Sokolov's influence extended far beyond what was visible to the naked eye. My phone vibrated, signaling an incoming call. Lily's face illuminated the screen, her smile frozen in a digital capture of happiness. I looked up at Sokolov, asking a silent question. He nodded once. Answer it. "Remember our arrangement. I took a deep, stabilizing breath and accepted the call, forcing a brightness into my voice that I was far from actually feeling. "Lily, I just landed." "Emma." My sister's voice bubbled over with excitement. "I can't wait to see you. James' parents are hosting a small gathering tonight. It's just family. I know you must be absolutely exhausted, but could you possibly come? They are dying to meet you properly." Sokolov's eyes narrowed instantly at the mention of the Prestons. I swallowed hard. "Actually, Lily, something has happened," I began, launching into the first of many lies I would have to tell. "I met someone on the flight." As I spun a sanitized, fairy-tale version of my whirlwind romance with the dangerous man sitting beside me, I watched Sokolov's face. Satisfaction gleamed in those dark eyes, along with something more complex, a possessiveness that both terrified and, God help me, intrigued me. What exactly had I gotten myself into? And more importantly, would either my sister or I emerge from this unscathed? The Sokolov residence was not at all what I had expected. I had imagined some ostentatious mansion dripping with gaudy displays of wealth. Instead, the SUV pulled up to a sleek, modernist structure composed of glass, steel, and stone, nestled on a secluded stretch of lakefront property. Discreet security measures were visible to my now hyper-aware eyes, cameras disguised as architectural elements, grounds landscaped to eliminate blind spots, and a gatehouse where armed men nodded respectfully as our vehicle passed. "Home, sweet home," I muttered under my breath as Alexei opened the car door for me. Sokolov's mouth quirked into that not-quite smile I was beginning to recognize. "One of them," he replied smoothly. "I maintain residences in several cities." Of course he did. Men like him never stayed in one place for too long. The interior was minimalist yet undeniably luxurious. Soaring ceilings, museum-quality art on the walls, and furnishings that looked both beautiful and functional. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Lake Michigan, the water shimmering with the late afternoon light. Despite the open design, the space felt like a fortress. A woman in her 50s approached us. Her silver-streaked dark hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and she wore simple black clothing, carrying herself with quiet dignity. "Ms. Reynolds, this is Mrs. Petrova," Sokolov introduced her. "She manages the household. If you need anything at all, she will provide it." Mrs. Petrova gave me a formal nod. "Your suite has been prepared, miss. Your luggage will arrive shortly. Would you care for refreshments after your journey?" The normalcy of the question in the midst of this surreal situation almost made me laugh. "Just water, thank you." "Show Ms. Reynolds to the East Suite," Sokolov instructed her. "I will join you shortly," he added, turning to me. "There are matters requiring my attention first." Mrs. Petrova led me through the house, her movements efficient and purposeful. I noted security personnel positioned discreetly throughout the residence, not obvious unless you were specifically looking for them. We ascended a floating staircase to the second floor, then proceeded down a hallway to a set of double doors. "Your accommodations," she announced, opening the doors to reveal a suite that could have occupied the entire floor of my apartment building. A sitting room with its own fireplace flowed into a bedroom dominated by a massive bed draped in crisp white linens. Beyond that, glass doors opened onto a private terrace overlooking the lake. The bathroom was a marble sanctuary featuring a soaking tub large enough to swim in and a shower encased in seamless glass. "It's excessive," I managed to say, overwhelmed by the luxury that now felt like another form of cage. "Mr. Sokolov values comfort," Mrs. Petrova replied, her tone entirely neutral. She moved to a closet, opening it to reveal several garments already hanging inside. "Some items for your immediate needs. Your personal belongings will be delivered soon." I approached the closet, running my fingers over silks, cashmere, and fine cotton, all appearing to be in my exact size. "How did he?" "Mr. Sokolov is thorough," she interrupted, answering my unfinished question. She placed a small device on the bedside table. "This is an internal house phone. Press 1 for me, 2 for security, 3 for Mr. Sokolov directly. Dinner will be served at 8. Is there anything else you require?" My throat tightened with a sudden wave of emotion. "My freedom." Mrs. Petrova's severe expression softened, but only slightly. "We are all bound by something, Miss Reynolds." She moved toward the door. "Rest. Change. The bathroom is fully stocked with toiletries." After she left, I collapsed onto the edge of the bed, the enormity of my situation crashing over me. I was effectively a prisoner in a gilded cage, my cooperation secured through thinly veiled threats against my sister. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was truth in Sokolov's warnings about the Prestons. The news article he had shown me had seemed genuine. If Wellington Capital was indeed involved in money laundering, then my sister was unknowingly walking into a dangerous situation. My phone chimed with a text from Lily. "Can't wait to meet your mystery man tomorrow. James says to bring him to the pre-rehearsal brunch, too. So excited for you, asterisk." I stared at her message, guilt and fear twisting inside me. What would she think if she knew the truth? That her maid of honor was now entangled with a man who was essentially a crime lord. That her future in-laws might be criminals themselves. After sending a non-committal reply, I dragged myself to the shower, hoping the hot water might wash away some of the tension coiled within me. The bathroom was stocked with high-end toiletries, the kind I would sample at department stores but never actually buy. I stood under the rainfall shower head, letting the scalding water pound against my skin until it turned pink. I emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a plush robe to find that my luggage had been delivered and unpacked. My modest belongings looked out of place in the luxury suite. The dress I had brought for the rehearsal dinner had been steamed and hung prominently in the closet, a simple navy blue cocktail dress that now seemed hopelessly inadequate compared to the designer items surrounding it. A soft knock at the door startled me. I clutched the robe tighter around myself. Yes. May I enter? Sokolov's voice, despite its softness, carried an expectation of compliance. I hesitated, then replied, "Give me a moment." I quickly pulled on jeans and a sweater from my suitcase, running my fingers through my damp hair before opening the door. Sokolov had changed into more casual attire, though casual for him still meant tailored dark trousers and a crisp white shirt open at the collar. Without his suit jacket, I could see the lean strength of his build more clearly, as well as the subtle bulge of a shoulder holster partially concealed beneath his shirt. He carried a flat velvet box in one hand and a folder in the other. "You look refreshed," he observed, his eyes taking in my appearance with that same unsettling thoroughness. "Being kidnapped does wonders for the complexion," I replied dryly. Something like amusement flickered in his eyes as he entered the suite, uninvited. "You agreed to come, Emma. Let's not rewrite history. Under duress. Under protection," he corrected himself before I could, setting the folder on a side table. "We need to establish our story before tomorrow's events." I crossed my arms defensively. "What story? How we met. How I swept you off your feet so thoroughly that you would bring me to your sister's wedding after knowing me for less than 24 hours. He raised an eyebrow. "Unless you would prefer to tell them the truth, that I am being coerced by a dangerous criminal who is threatening my sister's safety. I am sure that would go over well." He sighed, a surprisingly human gesture from a man who seemed anything but. "Sit, Emma. Please." The please sounded foreign on his lips, but I complied, perching on the edge of an armchair while he took the seat opposite me. "The story is simple," he began, his tone businesslike. "We met when you accidentally took my seat in first class. I was intrigued by your intelligence and compassion, traits evident in your profession as a nurse. I invited you to dinner upon landing. We connected immediately, and I asked to accompany you to the wedding events. A whirlwind romance, but not entirely implausible." I shook my head in disbelief. "No one will buy that. People believe what they want to believe," he replied calmly. "Your sister will be delighted you found someone who appreciates you. The Prestons will be too preoccupied with their own concerns to question it deeply. And what about public displays of affection?" I challenged. "A couple in the throes of a new romance would be all over each other." His expression remained impassive, but something darkened in his eyes. "I will leave that to your discretion, Emma. I won't force intimacy, even for appearances. A hand on the small of your back, perhaps your arm through mine, enough to suggest connection without making you uncomfortable." His consideration was unexpected and unsettling in its own way. It would be easier to hate him if he were entirely monstrous. "Why me?" I asked suddenly. "You could have hired an actress, someone trained for this kind of deception. Because you have something no actress could provide, genuine concern for Lily Preston. That authenticity cannot be faked." He leaned forward slightly. "And because you are observant, intelligent, and adaptable. I watched you assess the situation on the plane, weighing your options, controlling your fear. You make me sound like some kind of operative. In a sense, you are now." He opened the folder he had brought, revealing photographs of various well-dressed people. "These are the key players you will encounter tomorrow. Memorize their faces." I reluctantly took the folder, scanning images of elegant men and women at various social functions. Each photo had notes attached, names, affiliations, relationships. "Howard Preston," Sokolov said, pointing to a distinguished-looking man in his 60s. "Founder of Wellington Capital, former CIA operative with connections to various intelligence agencies. His money laundering operation is sophisticated and protected by powerful interests." My stomach clenched as I looked at the image. The man destined to become my sister's father-in-law, standing alongside his son, James. Sokolov's expression turned into a mask of steel. James Preston is his father's most prized resource. He possesses an Ivy League education, an impeccable pedigree, and a charming personality, serving as the acceptable public face of the family enterprise. He attracts legitimate clients who remain blissfully ignorant that their investments share ledger space with revenue from narcotics and human trafficking profits. Is he aware? I whispered, dreading the truth about his father's illicit activities. He is not merely aware, Emma. He is an active conspirator. Sokolov produced another photograph from the file. It showed James at a formal gala, his arm draped possessively around Lily. My sister looked radiant in the image, completely oblivious to the darkness closing in around her. James specializes in identifying vulnerable targets who possess valuable connections, people who can assist in expanding Wellington's influence into fresh territories. A cold horror washed over me as the implication became clear. You believe he is using my sister? I know he is. Sokolov's voice was soft yet unyielding. The question remains, why? Your family offers no apparent strategic advantage to Wellington. Tears stung the corners of my eyes. We are nobodies. A middle-class household from Columbus. Mom is a teacher, Dad is a retired postal worker. Yet James Preston, the heir to a criminal dynasty, was pursuing my sister with a singular, intense focus. He observed me closely, his gaze piercing. What am I overlooking, Emma? What renders your family valuable to the Prestons? I shook my head in helpless confusion. Nothing. We are just ordinary people. No one is truly ordinary upon closer inspection. He shut the folder decisively. We will resume this discussion later. For the moment, we must address the matter of establishing the credibility of our relationship. He extended the velvet box he had brought with him. With hesitant curiosity, I lifted the lid to reveal a breathtaking diamond pendant suspended from a platinum chain. It was elegant rather than gaudy, exactly the sort of token a new lover with refined taste might present. I cannot accept this, I stated instinctively. You can, and you will. His tone allowed for no debate. A man of my standing would never permit his partner to attend such functions without appropriate adornment. The Prestons will anticipate it. I am not your partner, I snapped. For the coming 5 days, you are. His eyes locked onto mine, intense and steady. In the public eye, you will enact the role of a woman swept away by an unforeseen romance. You will receive my gifts, my protection, and my guidance. In private, you may uphold whatever boundaries are necessary for your comfort. He rose from his seat, the movement fluid and disciplined. Dinner is in 1 hour. Mrs. Petrova will guide you to the dining room. As he turned to depart, a question burned in my throat. Have you done this previously? Used women as pawns in your business negotiations? He paused at the threshold, keeping his back to me. No, he answered quietly. This situation is as novel to me as it is to you. Before I could reply, he was gone, leaving me with more uncertainties than solutions and a diamond pendant that weighed as heavily as a shackle in my palm. Dinner proved to be a strangely ceremonial affair in a dining hall capable of seating 20, yet set for only 2. Sokolov occupied the head of the table, with me positioned at his right hand. Mrs. Petrova delivered each course with mute efficiency before vanishing, leaving us in heavy privacy. I picked at the flawlessly prepared food, my appetite suppressed by stress. Sokolov ate with methodical precision, his attention ostensibly on his meal, yet his awareness of me never faltered. Describe your sister to me, he said, eventually breaking the silence. Beyond what is contained in her file. You keep a file on my sister. I should not have been surprised, yet the violation still stung. I maintain files on everyone connected to the Prestons, he responded pragmatically. However, documents cannot capture the essence of a person. I took a sip of water, buying time to master my anger. Lily is light. That is the best way I can describe her. She perceives the good in everyone, trusts without hesitation, and loves completely. My voice cracked. She is everything that I am not. And how would you describe yourself, Emma Reynolds? His dark eyes assessed me over the rim of his wine glass, guarded, practical, suspicious. I met his gaze directly. As evidenced by our current situation, I am pragmatic. Nevertheless, you placed yourself in danger to protect her. A note of respect entered his tone. That speaks to character. It is what family does, I replied simply. He nodded, a shadow darkening his features. In my experience, family loyalty is both rare and valuable. Before I could inquire about that revealing comment, his phone vibrated against the table. He checked it, his expression hardening as he read the message. Plans have changed, he announced, standing abruptly. The Prestons are hosting a welcome dinner for out-of-town guests this evening. Your sister has requested our presence. Panic flared in my chest. Tonight. But we haven't prepared. We are as prepared as we ever will be. He was already in motion, purpose in every stride. Wear the black dress hanging in your closet and the pendant I provided. Be ready in 30 minutes. Wait, I called out as he reached the door. He paused, glancing back at me. I do not even know your first name. Something resembling surprise flickered across his face. Alex is my associate. I am Victor. Victor, I repeated, testing the name. It suited him, strong, traditional, with a sense of history behind it. A peculiar expression crossed his features. 30 minutes, Emma. I hurried back to my suite, my heart pounding. This was happening too fast. I was not ready to face the Prestons, nor was I prepared to feign intimacy with a dangerous man I barely knew. In the closet, I found the black dress he had mentioned, a deceptively simple sheath that transformed into something extraordinary when I put it on. The fabric molded to my body like a second skin, revealing curves I usually kept hidden under practical scrubs and casual clothes. The neckline dipped just low enough to be elegant without crossing into inappropriate territory. I fastened the diamond pendant around my neck with trembling fingers, the cool weight of it settling against my skin like a beautiful brand of ownership. A pair of classic black heels completed the ensemble. I applied minimal makeup enough to brighten my exhausted features and twisted my hair into a simple updo. The woman in the mirror looked like a stranger, polished, elegant, and far more sophisticated than the overworked nurse who had boarded a plane in a daze just hours ago. A knock at the door signaled Victor's arrival. When I opened it, I found him restored to formal attire, an immaculately tailored black suit that emphasized his powerful build. His dark eyes widened slightly as they took in my appearance, a reaction so subtle I might have missed it if I hadn't been watching closely. You look. He paused, seeming to search for the right word. Perfect. The compliment, delivered with such sincerity, sent an unexpected warmth through me. I pushed the feeling aside, reminding myself of the circumstances. I'm terrified, I admitted, the confession slipping out before I could stop it. Victor stepped closer, his expression softening marginally. Fear is natural, Emma. Channel it into alertness. He offered his arm. Shall we begin? As we descended the stairs, security personnel materialized, forming our now familiar protective detail. Outside, the same black SUV waited, engine running. Remember, Victor murmured as we settled into the vehicle. You are infatuated, not frightened. You find me fascinating, not intimidating. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. That's quite an acting challenge. His lips curved slightly. Draw on your professional experience. Nurses are excellent actors, are they not? Hiding fatigue, masking concerns from patients, projecting calm during chaos. He wasn't wrong. I'd spent years perfecting a professional demeanor that concealed my true feelings. As the SUV navigated through Chicago's evening traffic, Victor briefed me further on who we would encounter at the dinner, names, relationships, potential threats, information flowing in that accented voice that somehow made everything sound both dangerous and seductive. When we finally pulled up to the Preston mansion in one of Chicago's most exclusive neighborhoods, my nerves had settled into a strange, focused calm. Victor must have sensed the change because he gave me an approving nod as Alexei opened the door for us. Ready, *Dorogaya*, he asked, using a Russian endearment that sent a shiver down my spine. I took his offered arm, feeling the solid strength beneath the expensive fabric of his suit. As I'll ever be. Together, we ascended the steps to the mansion where my sister waited, blissfully unaware that the danger threatening her happiness had just arrived on my arm. The Preston mansion blazed with light, every window illuminated against the gathering darkness. Security personnel disguised as valets took our vehicle while actual staff in crisp uniforms guided guests through massive double doors into a foyer that could have housed my entire apartment. Victor's hand settled at the small of my back, warm and steady, a possessive gesture that reminded me of my role while simultaneously offering strange comfort. As we entered, heads turned subtly in our direction. I felt the weight of curious glances, the silent assessment of the newcomers. Emma. Lily's voice cut through the murmur of conversation. My sister appeared from the crowd, radiant in a champagne-colored cocktail dress, her blonde hair swept into an elegant updo so similar to mine it made my heart ache. We'd always mirrored each other unconsciously. She embraced me tightly, then pulled back to examine my outfit with wide eyes. "You look amazing. This dress is..." She gestured, speechless. A small gift, Victor supplied smoothly, extending his hand to her. "Victor Sokolov. I'm delighted to meet you, Lily. Emma speaks of you with such love." My sister's eyes widened as she took in the imposing figure beside me. "So, you're the reason my sister sounded so flustered on the phone." She laughed, accepting his handshake. "I've never known Emma to be impulsive. You must be special." I forced a smile, playing my part. "It was unexpected." "The best things often are," Victor replied, his accent more pronounced as he slipped his arm around my waist. The gesture looked casual but felt deliberate, a silent reminder of our arrangement. "You have to meet James," Lily gushed, already turning to scan the room. "He's somewhere. Oh, there he is with his parents." She led us through the crowd toward a trio standing near the grand staircase. I recognized James Preston immediately from his photos. Tall, classically handsome, with the confident bearing of old money. Beside him stood his parents, Howard and Margaret Preston, the very picture of sophisticated wealth. As we approached, I felt Victor tense beside me, though nothing in his expression betrayed the change. Only the slight pressure of his fingers against my waist indicated the significance of this moment. "James, darling," Lily called, her face lighting up as her fiancé turned. "Look who's finally here. My sister Emma and her boyfriend, Victor." James Preston's practiced smile faltered for just a millisecond as his eyes fell on Victor, so brief I might have imagined it had I not been watching closely. He recovered instantly, extending his hand with perfect social grace. "Emma, we've heard so much about you." Then his gaze shifted to Victor, something calculating flickering behind his friendly expression. "I don't believe Lily mentioned your companion's name." Victor Sokolov, my false boyfriend supplied, his handshake with James lasting a beat longer than necessary, some silent masculine communication passing between them. A recent but significant addition to Emma's life. Howard Preston stepped forward then, his keen eyes assessing Victor with the sharp scrutiny of a predator recognizing another of its kind. "Sokolov. Russian, yes? What brings you to Chicago?" "Business interests," Victor replied smoothly. "Import-export primarily. But tonight, the pleasure of accompanying Emma outweighs any commercial concerns." I watched the subtle dance of these powerful men, circling, probing, searching for weakness while revealing nothing themselves. Margaret Preston observed as well, her perfectly maintained smile never wavering. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes as she clasped my hand within her chilly grip. "It is delightful to welcome you, Emma. Lily mentions you incessantly." Her gaze darted toward Victor before returning to me. "And what a surprise to learn you were bringing a guest. You simply must recount how the two of you met." Before I could answer, Howard Preston cut in. "Let us continue this discussion over drinks. The bar is right this way." As our party migrated toward an ornate bar installed in what looked like a library, Victor leaned in close to my ear. "You are performing well," he whispered, his breath hot against my skin. "Remain close to me." The subsequent hour dissolved into a haze of introductions, idle chatter, and carefully managed interactions. Victor executed his role to perfection, attentive and charming, his focus reverting to me with a devotion so convincing I nearly believed it myself. His hand rarely broke contact with me, resting on my back or my arm, occasionally capturing my fingers in a hold that was gentle yet firm. I found myself observing the dynamic between James and Lily with a newfound suspicion. My sister clearly adored him, Her body language was open and trusting as she leaned into his touch. However, with James, there was a performative quality to his affection. His eyes kept drifting to other guests, especially when specific individuals entered the space. I caught him exchanging significant looks with his father on several occasions. "May I steal my sister away for a moment?" Lily asked Victor after we had been circulating for roughly an hour. "Girl talk, you understand?" Victor nodded graciously. "Certainly. I will procure fresh drinks for us." As Lily dragged me toward a secluded corner, I looked back to see Victor immediately engaged by Howard Preston, a maneuver that felt strategic rather than accidental. "Oh my God, Lily whispered once we had some privacy. "He is gorgeous. And that accent. Where did you find him? How did this come about?" I recited our prepared narrative, feeling like a deceiver with every syllable. It was just one of those crazy things. Wrong seat, right person. Lily squeezed my hands, her expression growing tender. "I am so happy for you. It is about time you found a man worthy of you." Her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "And clearly wealthy. That pendant must have cost a fortune." My fingers instinctively brushed the diamond at my throat. "Lily, are you happy? Truly happy?" She blinked, taken aback by my sudden gravity. "Of course I am. Why would you ask such a thing? It is just that the last time we spoke, you seemed stressed. Not quite yourself." A shadow flickered across her face before her smile re-emerged. "Just pre-wedding jitters. Everything is perfect, particularly now that you are here." She glanced across the room to where James stood conversing with Victor and Howard. The three most important men in my life, all getting along. What could be better? The irony of her words caused my chest to ache. Before I could investigate further, James materialized at Lily's side, his arm sliding possessively around her waist. "Apologies for the interruption, but my mother is requesting the bride-to-be. Something regarding seating arrangements for the brunch tomorrow." He smiled at me, projecting charm and perfect teeth. "Emma, I have been getting to know Victor. A fascinating man. How exactly did you say you two met?" The inquiry held a subtle challenge. I kept my composure, retelling our fabricated meeting story with just enough authentic detail to render it believable. James nodded, appearing satisfied, though his eyes remained vigilant. "Well, we are delighted you could both attend tonight. Victor was just mentioning to my father his interest in art acquisition. Quite the collection, apparently." As if summoned by his name, Victor appeared beside me, holding 2 champagne flutes. He extended one to me, his fingers grazing mine in a gesture that felt strangely intimate. "Your father possesses impressive knowledge regarding Russian imperial artifacts," Victor remarked to James, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. A niche interest. Something unspoken passed between the two men, a current of tension running beneath the polite dialogue. Lily, unaware of the subtext, beamed. "We should all have a proper dinner tomorrow after the rehearsal," she proposed. "Just the 4 of us." "A wonderful idea," Victor concurred, his hand locating the small of my back once more. "If you will excuse us, however, I promised Emma a tour of the garden. I understand the night-blooming jasmine is especially fragrant this time of year." Before anyone could protest, Victor steered me smoothly toward the French doors that opened onto the terrace. Once outside, amidst the relative privacy of the garden, he guided me to a secluded bench partially hidden by ornamental shrubs. Howard Preston recognized me instantly, he stated without preamble, his voice low. As I had feared, panic tightened my chest. "Is that dangerous?" "It is complicated." Victor's expression was grim in the soft landscape lighting. The Prestons owe debts to multiple organizations, my own included. They are scrambling to keep up appearances while their financial foundation collapses. "What does that mean for Lily?" I whispered. Victor's eyes softened slightly. "It means we must understand exactly why James pursued her with such determination. What value does she represent?" He scrutinized me intently. "Are you certain there is nothing in your family background that might be valuable? No connections to law enforcement, government, banking?" I shook my head. "We are exactly what we appear to be, ordinary people." "No one is ordinary," He repeated his earlier sentiment, then suddenly tensed, his posture warning me of approaching company before I even heard the footsteps. Howard Preston emerged from the shadows, a tumbler of amber liquid in hand. Ah, the lovebirds enjoying our gardens. His smile did not reach his eyes. Mr. Sokolov, might I have a private word? Victor squeezed my hand. Of course. Emma, would you mind giving us a moment? The request was not truly a question. I stood, sensing the dangerous undercurrents swirling beneath this civilized exchange. I will find Lily, I murmured, meeting Victor's eyes briefly. A silent message passed between us. Be careful. As I walked away, I heard Howard's voice drop to a menacing murmur. I know exactly who you are. The question is, does your lovely companion? I did not hear Victor's reply as I re-entered the house, my heart hammering. The elegant gathering suddenly felt sinister, the smiling faces merely masks hiding predatory intent. I scanned the room for my sister, spotting her near the grand piano where a musician played soft classical melodies. Before I could reach her, James intercepted me, holding 2 fresh champagne flutes. Your glass was empty, he said, offering one to me. And Victor seems occupied with my father. Shop talk, I am afraid. Boring for non-business types. I accepted the glass warily. What kind of business does your father have with Victor? James's smile remained fixed, but something calculated entered his gaze. Dad has interests in various markets. Eastern Europe presents opportunities. He took a sip of his champagne. But enough about business. Tell me about yourself, Emma. Lily speaks so highly of you, yet we have never really had the chance to talk. His charm was impeccable, his interest seemingly genuine, but I could not shake the sensation of being skillfully interrogated. I provided sanitized answers about my nursing career, deflecting personal inquiries while trying to observe him more closely. And Victor, he eventually asked. He seems quite protective of you. We have become very close, very quickly, I replied, sticking to our script. James nodded thoughtfully. Those whirlwind romances can be intoxicating. Though, in my experience, it is wise to know exactly who you are getting involved with. His eyes met mine directly. Especially when they come from certain backgrounds. Before I could respond to this thinly veiled warning, Victor appeared at my side, his hand reclaiming its position on my back. The slight tension in his frame told me his conversation with Howard had not gone well. James was just getting to know me better, I explained, leaning slightly into Victor's solid presence. How thoughtful, Victor replied, his accent thickening slightly, a tell I was beginning to recognize as a sign of heightened emotion. Unfortunately, we must take our leave. Emma has had a long day of travel, and tomorrow will be busy. James's expression remained pleasant, though his eyes hardened. Of course. We wouldn't want to exhaust the maid of honor before the festivities truly begin. We made our goodbyes, Victor expertly navigating us through the necessary social niceties. Lily extracted promises from me to arrive early for the brunch tomorrow, hugging me tightly before we departed. In the SUV, Victor remained silent until we had cleared the Preston property. Then he turned to me, his expression grave. The situation is worse than I anticipated. The Prestons are desperate, which makes them dangerous. His hand found mine in the darkness, his grip firm. Whatever game they are playing with your sister, we need to end it before the wedding. How? I asked, fear making my voice tremble. Victor's eyes gleamed in the passing streetlights. By discovering what they want from her. And to do that, we need to search James Preston's office tonight. Tonight. I stared at Victor in disbelief as the SUV sped through Chicago's nighttime streets. You want to break into the Preston offices tonight? Not break in. Victor's expression remained impassive. I have access codes and security clearance courtesy of our business arrangements. And we are not going to Wellington Capital's main offices. We are going to James Preston's private office in their secondary location. How do you have access to that? The pieces were not fitting together. Victor's mouth tightened. The Prestons launder money for several organizations, mine included. It is a necessary arrangement in my line of work. He met my shocked expression with calm certainty. I told you I was a businessman with diverse interests. I never claimed they were all legal. The brutal honesty stunned me into momentary silence. We rode without speaking until the SUV turned into an underground parking garage beneath an unremarkable office building in Chicago's financial district. You don't have to come inside, Victor said as the vehicle stopped. Alexei can take you back to the house. Part of me wanted desperately to accept that offer, to retreat to the safety of my golden prison and pretend none of this was happening. But my sister's future hung in the balance. I am coming, I said firmly. If this is about Lily, I need to see for myself. Something like respect flickered in Victor's eyes. He nodded once, then led me through a service entrance where a security guard nodded deferentially without checking any identification. We took a private elevator to the 14th floor, emerging into a dimly lit hallway of closed office doors. Victor moved with confident familiarity, Alexei following at a discreet distance behind us. We stopped at a door near the end of the corridor where Victor entered a code on a keypad, then pressed his thumb to a biometric scanner. The door unlocked with a soft click. They gave you biometric access? I whispered, incredulous. Not willingly. His smile was cold. Technology is remarkably adaptable when properly motivated. James Preston's office was exactly what I would have expected, tastefully expensive, designed to impress without appearing ostentatious. Dark wood, leather furnishings, strategic lighting highlighting framed credentials and artistic photography. A corner office with windows overlooking the Chicago skyline, currently glittering with nighttime illumination. Victor went directly to the computer on the massive desk, inserting a small device into one of the USB ports. As it powered up, he began methodically searching through physical files in the cabinets lining one wall. What exactly are we looking for? I asked, hovering uncertainly near the door. Financial records, personal correspondence, anything relating to your sister or your family. He glanced up. Check the credenza behind the desk. Look for hidden compartments. I moved tentatively toward the indicated furniture, feeling like a trespasser, which was exactly what I was. The credenza held mostly high-end liquor, crystal glassware, and stationery. However, as I inspected it more closely, I realized one drawer appeared shallower than the exterior dimensions suggested. Victor, I called out softly. I believe there is a false bottom here. He appeared at my side immediately, his strong fingers tracing the edges of the drawer until a mechanism clicked, exposing a hidden compartment. Resting inside were a USB drive and a small leather-bound notebook. Victor retrieved both, scanning the notebook while plugging the drive into his equipment. His face grew grim as he read. What is it? I asked, anxiety tightening in my gut. Dates, initials, figures, he murmured. A secondary set of books. He looked up to meet my gaze. Your sister's initials show up repeatedly over the last year, with the dollar amounts increasing beside them. A cold chill swept through me. What does that imply? Before he could reply, the device connected to Preston's computer chimed. Victor acted quickly to check it, scrolling through files with expert speed. I peered over his shoulder as documents flew across the screen, financial reports, emails, photographs. He paused abruptly on a picture of my sister. It was a candid shot taken without her knowledge as she left her apartment building in Chicago. The timestamp indicated a date from 14 months ago, roughly around the time she had first met James. They were tracking her, I whispered, horror rising. Why? We aren't anybody. Victor kept scrolling, opening emails and documents at a rapid pace. Finally, he landed on a message exchange between James and his father from over a year prior. Target identified, Emma Reynolds, RN at Chicago Memorial. Access to restricted pharmaceuticals and controlled substances. Clean record. Financial struggles. Student loans. Recent medical bills. Sister Lily is the more approachable target. Recommend indirect recruitment through familial connection. The blood drained from my face as the realization dawned. They wanted me, I breathed, my voice barely audible. They wanted me for access to hospital drugs. And they used Lily to get to me. Victor's expression had turned icy with rage. The Prestons supply certain organizations with pharmaceutical products diverted from legitimate sources. A nurse with access to controlled substances would be extremely valuable to their operation. My legs felt weak. I gripped the desk for stability as the horrific truth crystallized. James never loved Lily. She was just bait. Keep reading, Victor said grimly, scrolling to more recent correspondence. Reynolds continues to resist recruitment attempts. Sister relationship not providing expected leverage. Recommend accelerated timeline. Post-wedding, Elle will have sufficient legal entanglements to create effective pressure points. Father-in-law medical issues provide additional opportunity for pharmaceutical access via family sympathy. Tears blurred my vision. They were planning to use me through her. And if I refused, they would ensure Lily was legally bound to them through marriage before applying more direct pressure. Victor finished, his voice tight with controlled fury. Classic entrapment strategy. A sudden noise in the hallway froze us both. Victor instantly disconnected his devices, returning the notebook but pocketing the USB drive. He guided me swiftly toward a side door that opened into an adjacent office. We need to leave, he murmured. We have what we came for. We navigated through darkened offices to a service stairwell, descending rapidly to the parking level where Alexei waited with the SUV. The escape felt surreal, like something from a film rather than my actual life. Once safely in the vehicle and speeding away from the building, the reality of what I had discovered crashed over me. I buried my face in my hands, shoulders shaking with suppressed sobs. They never cared about her, I managed to say between ragged breaths. She loves him so much, and it was all a lie. I felt Victor's arm wrap around my shoulders, pulling me against the solid warmth of his chest. The gesture was so unexpected that I didn't resist, instead turning my face into his shoulder as tears soaked the expensive fabric of his suit. What am I going to tell her? I whispered. This will destroy her. Victor's hand stroked my hair with surprising gentleness. The truth, Emma. It will hurt her now, but save her from far worse pain later. I pulled back slightly to look at him. Why do you care? This was just about recovering money the Prestons owe you. Why does my sister matter to you at all? Something complicated shifted behind his dark eyes. I told you from the beginning. I protect what is mine. His fingers brushed my cheek, wiping away tears. And now, whether you like it or not, you and your sister have become my concern. The intensity in his gaze made it hard to breathe. I should have been repulsed by his possessiveness, but instead, I found it oddly comforting. This dangerous man had aligned himself with our protection. We will tell her tomorrow, I said finally. After the brunch, but before the rehearsal dinner. She deserves to know before things go any further. Victor nodded. I will have security arrangements in place. The Prestons won't take this development lightly. We rode in silence back to Victor's lakeside residence, his arm still around me, my head resting against his shoulder. The comfort I found in his embrace was complicated by everything he represented: danger, criminality, a world so far removed from my ordinary existence that it felt like fiction. Yet here in the darkness, with Chicago's light streaming past the tinted windows, the line between protector and captor, between fear and something far more confusing, had begun to blur. Morning arrived with painful brightness. I had barely slept, my mind replaying the discoveries of the previous night in an endless loop of horror and grief for my sister. How could I tell her that the man she loved had never wanted her at all? That their entire relationship was a calculated effort to manipulate me? I dressed carefully for the brunch in a pale blue dress from the collection Victor had provided, applying makeup with extra attention to hide the evidence of my sleepless night. The diamond pendant remained around my neck, no longer just a prop for our charade, but a strange talisman, a reminder of Victor's unexpected protection. He was waiting for me in the foyer, immaculate as always in a light grey suit that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders and the intensity of his dark eyes. Something shifted in his expression when he saw me, a softening I was beginning to recognize. You look lovely, he said simply. I feel like I'm marching to an execution, I replied, my voice hollow. His hand caught mine, warm and steady. We do this together, Emma. You are not alone. Those words, so simple yet so powerful, nearly undid my fragile composure. I had been alone for so long, carrying responsibilities, working endless shifts, trying to build some semblance of security in a precarious world. To suddenly have someone standing beside me, however complicated the circumstances, was overwhelming. The drive to the Preston estate for the pre-wedding brunch passed in intense silence. Victor briefed me on security arrangements. His men would be positioned strategically around the property, ready to extract us if necessary. Alexei would remain within sight at all times. After you have spoken with Lily, we leave immediately, Victor instructed. No matter her reaction, no matter the fallout, her safety and yours are the priority. The estate looked different in daylight, less intimidating, but more ostentatious. The manicured grounds stretched out in perfectly maintained greenery. Catering staff bustled about, setting up for the outdoor brunch under a massive tent erected on the back lawn. Lily spotted us immediately, waving enthusiastically as she broke away from a group of bridesmaids. She looked radiant in a white sundress, her happiness so genuine it made my heart ache with what was to come. "You're here," she exclaimed, embracing me tightly before smiling up at Victor. "And looking disgustingly perfect together, I might add." I forced a smile, noticing James watching us from across the lawn, his expression carefully neutral. Howard Preston stood nearby, engaged in conversation with several distinguished-looking men Victor had identified as business associates with questionable connections. "Lily," I began, my voice catching. "After brunch, I need to talk to you privately. It is important." Her smile faltered slightly. "Is everything okay?" "Just sister stuff," I assured her, hating the deception even as I knew it was necessary before all the wedding chaos took over. She nodded, her brightness returning. "Of course. Now come meet everyone. The bridesmaids are dying to know who your mysterious plus one is." The next 2 hours were excruciating. Maintaining the facade of celebration while carrying the devastating truth. Victor remained close, his presence both comforting and commanding as we navigated the social obligations. I noticed how the other guests responded to him with a mixture of fascination and instinctive caution, as if sensing the predator in their midst. Finally, as the brunch wound down, I caught Lily's eye and nodded toward the garden. She excused herself from a conversation and followed me to a secluded bench beneath a flowering tree, far enough from the tent to ensure privacy. Victor positioned himself at a discreet distance, close enough to intervene if necessary, but giving us space for what would surely be a painful conversation. "What is going on, Em?" Lily asked, her bright expression dimming as she registered my serious demeanor. "You have been off all morning." I took her hands in mine, gathering courage. "Lily, there is something you need to know about James and his family. Something I discovered last night." As gently as possible, I told her everything. The Preston family's criminal enterprises, James's calculated pursuit of her to get to me, the evidence we had found. With each revelation, her face crumpled further, tears streaming down her cheeks. "No," she whispered repeatedly. "No, that can't be true. He loves me. I know he does." "I am so sorry," I said, my own tears falling. "I would give anything for this not to be true." She shook her head violently. "You are wrong. You must be. Victor has misled you, Lily." Victor's voice came from behind us, gentle but firm. He held out his phone, displaying the evidence we had gathered. "See for yourself." With trembling hands, she took the device, scrolling through the damning emails and financial records. Her face went ashen. "All this time," she whispered. "I was just a way to get to you." I pulled her into my arms as she broke down completely, her body shaking with sobs. Over her shoulder, I saw James approaching rapidly, his expression darkening as he took in the scene. Victor moved smoothly to intercept him, his posture relaxed but unmistakably threatening. They exchanged words I couldn't hear, but James's face contorted with anger before he abruptly turned and strode back toward the house. "We need to leave now," Victor said, returning to us. "Things are about to become complicated." Lily pulled back from my embrace, her eyes red but suddenly determined. "I want to confront him. I need to hear him say it." "Not here," Victor cautioned. "It is not safe." As if to emphasize his point, Howard Preston emerged from the house, gesturing urgently to security personnel who began moving purposefully in our direction. "Lily, please," I begged. "Come with us. We can sort everything out somewhere safe." She hesitated, torn between the life she had thought was hers and the devastating truth. Then with a deep breath, she nodded. "Let's go," she said, her voice steadier than I expected. "I need to get away from here." Victor guided us swiftly toward a side exit where Alexei waited with the SUV. As we hurried across the lawn, I heard James calling Lily's name. He called her name, voice laced with desperation. She never turned.